Welcome back to the Inspired Podcast, the podcast that is designed to help you discover God and dwell with Him. Whatever season in life you're in, you'll pick up helpful insight, thoughts to think on throughout the week, and leave this episode feeling inspired to know God in deeper ways. Right now is a great time to listen to past episodes if you've missed them. It is our desire that these conversations pave the way to have meaningful conversations among other women and friends. I'm Jessica, and I'm on the Inspired team here at X Church, and speaking of friends, that is what we talk about this week. We also have a new friend join us this week, Morgan Clapprood. God is the creator and designer of friendship. We see plenty of examples of good and bad friendships in the Bible. Friendship is a gift, but so many times we can mistakenly make friendship a goal in our life. When we begin to view our friendships as goals instead of gifts, we lean on our friends to fill us in ways they were not designed to. But what about the absence of friendship? Inevitably, there is loneliness in our journey of finding friends as well. In this episode, we talk about what to do in the absence of friendships and how to shift our mindset in the loneliness. When searching for friends, oftentimes we encounter them in an unlikely place when we make the first move. When we initiate the search for a friend instead of waiting for friends to come to us, it can pave the way of transparency, vulnerability, and hospitality in our friendships. Welcome back, Inspired Girls.
And guys who listen to.
The Inspired Podcast.
And guy.
Yeah. And guy, yeah. Or guy that listens to the Inspired Podcast. We hope that you're doing well. We're on episode 11. Last week, we did not know the episode, but we do this week, and it's episode 11. Okay. And so if you didn't join us last week, you're going to want to go back to that episode. We talk about transparency versus perfectionism, and it was a good conversation. I feel like I walked away really hanging on to some of what we were talking about. And I mean, it's encouraging to kind of thumb through the areas of life where you maybe put a perfectionism persona out.
Oh, yeah. It's really easy to do, too.
Oh, yeah. Especially in our world with social media and all that. But today we have a special guest with us. Megan had to be out this week. And so we have Morgan Clapprood.
Hello.
Thanks
for having me.
Yeah, if you were around a few weeks ago, she was a part of our X Church Values communicators, one of our communicators, and she did an amazing job. And you also probably know her from X Kids. She is our X Kids extraordinaire.
That's right. The squishy extraordinaire.
Yes.
I was going to say, she
Although
makes
recently we switched to slime, so
yes,
sorry. Did you notice that?
I got slime this week.
Yeah. Morgan always orders the most interesting things from Amazon. You know, it's you can just say, what does she need that for?
Yeah.
You know,
It's
yards and yards of ribbon or whatever, you know. So, but yeah. Really glad you're here, Morgan.
Thank you for having me. I've got big shoes to fill. Hopefully I do okay.
Yeah, you'll do awesome. Today, last week we kind of ended our conversation around the idea of authenticity and how it can be pretty challenging in today's world to live an authentic life because we have things like social media, which causes comparison, and you almost put up this front of all the highlights, which is great and it's not bad. It just kind of shelters and hides a little bit the real, the inner, the things that go on inside of us, in our minds and in our hearts. And, we don't put that out there for everybody to see, probably for good reason, because a level of that is guarding yourself.
That's right.
Kind of a survival instinct, I think. So we kind of landed on authenticity, and it really gave way to, I feel like, a good conversation about friendships. So we talked about toxic relationships a few weeks ago, but I really do feel that friendship is a lot bigger, wider, grander, lonelier than we would like to admit. And so I think that would be really great today if we had a conversation about friendship and all things that kind of fall under the category of friendships. So with that said, I mean, I'm interested on your take, each one of you ladies, about friendships. What kind of friendships have you had over the years? What part of, like, what components about friendships did you discover? What are some of the things that you've learned from friendships that you've had? Anybody?
Well, I think, you think about your life, about all the different kinds of friends you've had. You know, you might think about, I think about a childhood friend that I had that was my one best friend. You know, when you're in elementary school or junior high, or, you have, it's like your best friend.
Oh, yeah.
person.
And like the friendship necklaces.
Oh, yeah. We did friendship rings.
Okay, yeah.
We had rings.
But yeah, like the necklace with like the little, the half heart.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that stuff, because, that one friend that you had that you could, giggle with and cry with and do all those things. And I was fortunate that I had someone, and she was actually really, really important in my life, because her home was a place I could go to that was like my safe space. And so that was, and she was a musician, she was creative and like me. And so, we just kind of clicked and stuff. But then, we got we got out of high school, and, we went to college, and we kind of stayed in contact, and, and you drift away, and then you have a hole. And so then it was like, well, now what do I do? And I've had various people come in and out of my life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that if you have friends that you have known for a really long time that you're still really close with, that is really, really special. And I know I've mentioned it on this podcast before, that I have 5 women that I've known since the early 90s, that we still, it's the kind of friendship where, even though we don't see each other very often, that, we get together because we're all in different places right now, on a Zoom call, or we do get together for lunch or something. And it's just like, we've never been apart, just because I think our history, but more than that, it's the transparency that we've had, kind of what we talked about, and how we've shared our lives. And, it's one of those where it's like, okay, these people know things that could put me in jail, kind of thing, not seriously, but you know what I mean, where it's really the deep stuff. But, and I've had friends that have betrayed me. I've had friends who've walked away because they didn't understand something. I remember when I got divorced, I lost a lot of friends because of just kind of, I think, the time it was, in the atmosphere in the church that I was in at that time, that people just walked away, and that's really hard.
Well, yeah, because probably the time in life that you needed friends the most, they walked away.
Right. But and that was a lonely time. I had a couple people that I still could confide in and things like that didn't think I was, lost my testimony and a sinner and all that stuff. But there were a lot of people that, instead of friendship, I ended up with judgment. And that's a hard thing. And I think that's something probably we've all experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Morgan?
So I was lucky enough to grow up in the same house, like from kindergarten till I graduated high school. So I feel like I had all these same friends. And I remember going off to college and beyond, and I didn't know how to make friends, because I'd had all these friends forever. And I'm like, I don't know how to make friends. I just had friends. That was a hard time in my life. I felt like I had to do a lot of inward, searching in myself. Like you, Janice, I had like a person, my friend. We actually ended up living together our freshman year of college in a dorm room. And before we moved in together, we'd kind of had a rough patch, and some trust was broken. And other reasons, I ended up moving back home, and I just felt like really lonely, like alone in my journey. And I think it's easy to get stuck there. I had a hard time feeling like I was looking for value in other people, like, very easily.
Which like can happen so easily and often in friendships. Is when we end up displacing, or putting a friend in a place that they ultimately cannot fill inside of us.
Right. Yeah. I remember, I think, crying to he was my boyfriend at the time, but my now husband, like, I don't have any friends. Like we had just started dating, and he would go out with his friends, and like because he was going out with his like all my friends. I had friends. Okay, I had friends, but we were all everyone like kind of went elsewhere for college. So I was back home living with my parents. And everyone else is like continuing their college experience, and I was just like felt like I was at home twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had to then be the friend
Yeah.
to get friends.
Yeah.
I had a lot of coworkers, and I think that's kind of like where I started. Like I had a job at a restaurant, and just sparked some friendships there. And then I ended up going to cosmetology school, kind of same thing. Like we obviously had a commonality in our lives, so maybe we can go a little farther.
Yeah.
Like make the move.
Yeah.
On the friendship side. Like, do you want to be my friend?
I know, it's kind of like
So
you feel-
elementary.
yeah, I know you do feel elementary. I feel like for me, like, friends growing up, whatever, but I think probably the toughest time in finding friends for me was like early motherhood. And, if you're
yeah.
listening and you have little kids, you know what a dry season that can be.
Yeah.
Number one, I think, because we live in the day and age, like the digital age, where, I remember sitting at home several nights where, you see these young moms that get babysitters for their kids and go out and like have a drink or whatever. And you look past their, story and you're like, ugh, why don't I have friends like that? And, we moved across the country with 2 little ones. And when I came here, I knew I was trying to prepare myself by knowing, okay, I don't know a single soul, and that's okay because I can make friends. And I was actually in a Christian community when I came up here. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, great, automatic friends.
Instant friends.
Instant friends. I'm going to be in a church. And I actually really struggled, even in that time, finding a place to belong and finding those tight-knit group of friends that I expected. And so those early stages of motherhood were really, I'm going to say it too, lonely. I feel like we all kind of landed in this idea that, a part of friendship, or at least searching for friendships can be lonely.
Absolutely.
And so maybe we should lean into that a little bit and talk about truths in that. I know that all of us, to some degree, at some season, in some, level, experience loneliness, either in a friendship or in the search for friendships. And I think that, first and foremost, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are involved in our community at our church. And I think that an interesting perspective might be the definition of friendship and community and what that can mean, because you can be in a community and not have friendships, because
right.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What does that mean? What are we to take if we're, because if I'm trying to make a friend, I think the first step is probably to immerse yourself in a community. But what happens if we do that and we take that step and we don't experience having an instant friend? What do we do?
I think sometimes our sometimes our expectations is that it's just going to happen like spontaneously.
Yeah.
The heavens are going to open, the angels are going to sing, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's my friend I've been searching for. And it isn't that way.
Yeah.
Well, I think because life is so much more complex when you're an adult.
Yeah, I think so.
When we were little, we could dumb it down into like, oh, you like Care Bears? I like Care Bears too. So let's be best friends.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like as adults, it can't be like, oh, you like,
The Bachelor.
The Bachelor, you like Target, I like Target too, we should be friends. I don't think it's that easy, unfortunately.
No, it's not.
It's a
And
great place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you talk about community,
Yeah.
I think it is a good place to start, because in community, whether, like in our context here at X Church, it's like, okay, say you start serving, you get to know some people on your, that you're serving with, and you see some of the same people every week or every other week, and you start talking, you get to know them a little bit, some stuff about their lives, and then you can bring that up. But you also may find someone that's like, oh, why don't we go get coffee or something like that? But on the other hand, you can still do that and still say, I've heard, people say, I just don't click with anybody. It just doesn't,
we don't hit it off.
We don't hit it off, or, or we can say, well, join a small group or a circle. And even within that, I know I lead a couple circles, and it always does my heart good when I hear, someone say, hey, well, someone doesn't show up and they say, oh, well, I saw them last week, we went out to dinner with them or we had coffee. So in other words, within that, friendships can form that maybe, it's not with everybody in a big circle. And I think Jesus gave us that example too.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he had community with his 12, but he had close relationship and close friendship with 3.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's I think that's a really good example.
Yeah, it's a good model.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be super close with everybody, but community is a good place to start.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I think too, it's important to stay out of the victim mentality. I think a lot of times our thoughts of loneliness, nobody likes me, everyone's hanging out without me, I'm the victim, nobody wants to be my friend. You have to look inside yourself. Like what can I do, versus what can they do for me? And you can search for that friend that's always with you, the one that never leaves you, and that's Jesus.
Yeah.
I think when you even talking to him, like, God, I need a friend. Like, Jesus, will you, bring someone alongside me or put someone in my path, like, in the days, seasons to come, and just strike my heart and spur something in me to go start a conversation with that person. Because I feel like a lot of times, your friends don't always look like you, like the people that you're gonna jive with.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I have probably found the best friendships in the most unlikely places.
Yeah. I am actually just recently, I have made a really great friend, and we've been in the same community social circle-ish for 6 years. I do blame COVID partially, but
Yeah, that kind of.
we have kids the same age. They've been in the same classrooms, I think the last 2 or 3 years. And we ended up coaching cheerleading together. And I literally sent her a text the other night. I'm like, where have you been the last 6 years? We just naturally have found this friendship. She goes to a different church, the Tree, shout out to the Tree. And I don't know. That doesn't happen very often, but also it took, it wasn't instantaneous. I think we also live in a world where we expect
instantaneous
instant results, please.
Yes.
But things like that take time. Maybe 6 years ago, we wouldn't have jived like we do.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that, part of that instantaneous mindset, I feel like in the mindset of loneliness, how do we have the correct mindset of loneliness? Because I think sometimes we automatically default to being lonely is bad. And it's not desirable, but it's not bad. And I feel like probably in those young mom years where I wanted friends and I wanted a group of girls to hang out with, or I wanted, someone to come that I could have, that we could talk about all the things that are happening in our lives right now, or what my kid is doing this now, and they've hit this milestone, and blah blah blah, and whatever. I think that my mindset shifted from, all right, so I might not have a physical friend, although I was praying for that. I think it's you should pray for friends.
Absolutely.
You should,
Yes,
because they're a gift from God.
Yeah.
And when you're praying for that friend and God answers that prayer, it explodes your view of who God is. Because when you realize that you've met that friend, that you're able to serve and also be served mutually, it's a gift. And if you don't find yourselves in one of those friendships now, I want to encourage you to continue to pray and to continue to seek, because there are friendships that are so life-giving and that are gifts from God. But the mindset that I feel like I had to switch from is, instead of, I'm going to say this about me, I'm not saying this about you, but the pity party. I really did throw myself a few pity parties of like, you know, I'm a mom and like, I'm so tired. All I want is just like a friend or like, you know, whatever. And I think I had to get out of that mindset, and I had to switch to, in this time where I don't feel like I have that close friend that I'm able to lean on. I do have my creator and my savior. And I know that sounds very churchy and it sounds very cliche, but I remember sitting on my bathroom floor one day, like scrubbing the floors, like literally with a bottle of like cleaner and my rag, and wiping the floors and kind of having this like little pity party, like, oh my gosh, like I'm in the trenches of motherhood and I'm with these humans 24/7. I talk baby, you know, most of the time, or toddler, or
They're very messy.
Yes, trying to decipher what my child is saying right now. I wish that I could just like other, you know, outside of like my husband, I wish I could just have like a normal conversation with someone.
Yeah.
But I really feel like in that moment, God gave me a picture of just like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the ground next to you, with you, in cutting up those pieces so tiny for your little baby to you know, put in their mouth so they don't choke. I'm with you scrubbing that floor.
Yeah.
I'm with you singing songs to your kids. I'm with you listening to Blippi or Baby Shark in the car. You know, and I remember thinking, what? I mean, I've been missing that because I've been so focused on how I don't have the human friend. And I really feel like that carried me through that season of the mindset of loneliness was so, you know, inverted on me to where I came to a mindset shift of, God, there's something that you want to teach me here.
Yeah.
And I feel in that season that I learned that God was a good friend. I learned that side of his character, that he is a good friend.
I feel like in turn that makes you appreciate your human friends
Yes.
even more.
Oh, yes, for sure.
I think when we approach him with open hands, like, what are you going to teach me through this season? Like, and how can I be a good friend? What are you trying to tell me right now? When you approach him with the open hands instead of the pointed finger.
Yeah.
And I think too that when, you know, you do what you're talking about, Jess, it takes the pressure off of the people you end up being friends with. Rather than looking at them to say, you know, I want you to be there for me. I want you to be able to listen to me all the time. I want you to always be consistent. I want you to never betray me. I want you to never, you know.
That's a lot of expectation.
You know,
Yes.
do all those things. Instead, it's like it gives you just the right perspective of people to say, I have a perfect friend. You know, his name is Jesus. And I've been blessed with this friend or that friend, and know that she's just as imperfect as I am.
Right.
And we're going to do things and we're going to misunderstand each other. There's going to be things, and we may not be there. Our lives may change and we may drift apart, and that's okay too. Because that season was a gift.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think everybody can think back, you know, just like I was talking about my friend that I had in elementary school and junior high and high school. You know, we went to college and we drifted apart, but I look back on that time and that friendship, and it was really, really special. It was a gift for that season of my life. And I have different friends now. I think part of what we run into, especially when we're feeling it lonely and we feel like we don't have that person or whatever, is that we start looking around and we say, everybody else does, and I don't. And you know, and face it, social media is horrible about feeding that.
Yeah. It just magnifies that.
Right. It just magnifies it. It's like, oh, well, how come she gets to go out with her friends and look at them, you know,
They went to a concert. They didn't
yeah,
invite
they're
me.
pictured together, and, you know, and they're all so happy, and, you know, and I'm, you know, I'm
Here
sitting
I
here.
am sitting at home in my pajamas. Although I'm at a point in my life where I would much rather be sitting at home in my pajamas than at a concert.
Yes. I
I
agree.
will take that any night of the week.
Yeah.
You know, or it's like, well, you know, why don't I have that person that I can just call up and say, oh, let's go do this, and you know, we just
and
pick
they're
up and go.
available. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've gone through that even just, you know, even in the last few years, that it's like, I really don't have that. But then I stop and I have to think. I'm like, okay, Janice, do you really, really need that? And I've come to the conclusion that at my season of life, I really don't. What I really want and what I have is that I know I have people that if I need to talk to someone or whatever, or I can text them and say, you know what, if you don't pray for me right now, I'm going to kill somebody, or or I'm just I'm really really hurting, or hey, let's get together for coffee or something like that. But the need is different, and that's okay. But one of the things I was thinking when you guys were talking was the thought of friendship takes time.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
Like what you were saying,
Lots of it.
Morgan, about this woman that you've known for 6 years, and you've
Right.
had these things, you've had kind of interactions and all this
Yeah.
kind of thing, but when it finally came together, it was just like this gradual unfolding.
Yeah.
And because
probably
we,
just at the right time.
yeah, right at the right time. And I think because we are in this, we want it all and we want it now.
Yep.
That many times I think we're not willing to do that slow investment. I mean, I think we talked, when we talked about relationships, we talked about reciprocity, that it's like it's a give and take and it has to go both ways. And that isn't going to be with everybody. And it also, it's something that develops over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you said it takes time, because I feel like even within the framework of takes time. I mean, in my mind, that can probably be different for everybody. In my mind, I'm like, does taking time mean it's going to be like 6 months or a year, or am I looking at like 5 years before I gain a friend? You know what I mean? And I think that
I know the way your mind works.
Yeah.
and so I think what keeps us from putting a time limit on it is investing in what we do have. And at times that may only be just what's in front of us. And sometimes that means nobody. And so I feel like my question is always, trying to figure out, so if I do want friends and these are the kind of friends that I desire, what do I need to do about that? And like we mentioned earlier, I think praying is very important and very vital. But what do you do in the meantime? And I think what I have heard both of you say at different times is being a friend to someone else.
Yeah. To put yourself out there.
Yeah. And that is probably the most uncomfortable.
It's risky.
Cringy.
Yes, cringy. I know, because I feel like, okay, so for instance, we're into a new school district about a year and a half in, and in elementary school, I feel like as far as like your children's friends go, like I tried being in the classrooms, like when I could, to volunteer so I could learn like who my boys were with and like who their parents were, so I could reach out and initiate. But you always feel like the really weird mom that's like, hi, I'm Indy's mom. Can I have your number so we can maybe do a play date? I mean, you just said you feel so cringy.
Or schools are weird. Like you have to like go through the teacher to get the number, and then they have to ask the parent, like, is it okay if I give your number to so and so? And then it's like, that's weird. What if they say no?
I know. But I feel like to a certain extent, you almost have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I remember telling this to one of my sons, is because, which by the way, our children go through this same exact complex of loneliness and not having friends. And really from the heart of a child, I feel like it's not necessarily like this, I want a friend because so-and-so has a friend. It's like they want to feel known.
Yeah.
They want to feel like they're a part of something, which is no different than how we feel.
That's right.
But I remember giving my son advice one time of like, him saying, I don't have any friends. And me saying, well, what about you being a friend to someone else? And I really feel like that sparks something. And I haven't quite put my finger on it, but I just know that when we do put ourselves out there, I think it's because we live in a world where you don't want to, like, it's uncomfortable to do.
Yeah.
And so what if you do put yourself out there and say, like, you want to be my friend? I mean, maybe not that awkward, because then you might not have any friends. But
right.
I feel like it's a step of faith too. I think as Christ followers, you've prayed about this, and like you take that step of faith, and I feel like God wants to reward your steps of faith, and I feel like He's going to reward that. Like you were telling us that he was feeling like he didn't have any friends, but that was not the truth. You know, that wasn't even true. I feel like a lot of times, you know, lies can be planted, you know, seeds of doubt of our own self-worth. And then he takes that step of initiative, that step of faith, and lo and behold, he's got friends, you know, like he's being invited to play dates. He's being, you know, you're having friends over to your house, like what he was feeling. I think recognizing that what we're feeling, our feelings aren't always true.
Right.
Our feelings don't reflect truth. And which is another reason why we have to, you know, seek Jesus and seek, you know, our relationship with God to get that truth, you know, go to scripture, because I'm a big feeler. I think we mentioned this the last time I was on this podcast, but I'm a 2, and I'm a 2-wing 2, and I feel everything.
I don't think that's
for other people's, it's not a thing, but I feel like I'm learning about that myself. I'm, you know, 30 something years old, and I'm still learning, that my emotions aren't always truth. I'm feeling this way, but it's not always true. And I think when it comes to friendship and being afraid to put yourself out there, you know, anyway, God's going to reward you if you take that first step. I feel like he wants to bless you with some awesome friends.
Yeah. I mean, nobody likes to be rejected.
That too.
And so there is
fear.
It feels kind of risky, you know, like there's, you know, someone maybe you've been in community with, because we kind of talked about that, and you're thinking, you know, I'd like to get to know this person better, and maybe we could be friends, and you know, and you know, let's get together for coffee, and you feel like they're putting you off, or they're saying, well, no, you know, and all this kind of thing, or maybe it just doesn't work. But it's that risky feeling of nobody likes to be rejected,
Right?
Nobody wants to be the person who throws the party and nobody shows up. You know, and so I think because of that, that probably keeps a lot of us from trying, because we're thinking about us, and all that.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, well, you know, I'm just going to say, hey, you want to get together? Let's meet for coffee sometime.
Right.
You know, or whatever. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's has to do with expectations.
Yep.
But I feel also like that is the spirit of hospitality.
Yeah.
When you are the one taking the initiative and the first step, that is the spirit of hospitality. And I feel like that is straight biblical.
Yeah.
I mean, and, you know, I've talked to a number of women about opening up their house, and, you know, along the lines of hospitality, I feel like that's where a lot of my friendships have started.
Oh, yeah.
And it can feel so vulnerable because that's your house. That's where you live in. That's your safe place. That's where the good and the bad happens. And you're about to open up your doors and, you know, run the risk of, you know,
Judgment.
Yeah, judgment. Does my house smell bad? Does it look really bad? Like,
there's a couple dirty dishes.
there's dirty
missing.
dishes.
When's the
Like, I
last time
haven't mopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's laundry piled up everywhere. But
My kids made a fort last night, and it's
yes,
still,
and
right.
they told me that I can't take it down. That is a true
Yes.
story, because Phoenix just was building Lincoln logs yesterday on the center of the kitchen floor. And he built a house, and I was like, all right,
masterpiece.
let's put this up. And he was like, no, my friend's coming over today and I need to show her. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
well, can you move it to the side? Or what? He was like, no, I want it right there. I'm like, fine. But I mean, I think that we run the risk of being judged
Yeah.
or rejected. And there's something to say that when you take that initial step of hospitality, that initial step of, you know, grace and love and extension to another person, that sure, you can be shut down and you can feel rejected, but I think that that's probably the heart of God, is that when we do take the risk and we do initiate a connection, because it makes me think back to like what Christ did for us. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, he took that initial step for us, that when God sent him into the world, he sent his son. And so we are, since we're image bearers and we are created after God's heart, that should be our posture as well. Instead of having a mindset of, I'm just waiting for my friends to come to me, what if we took that first step and initiated friendship, you know, between another person? And I think another thing is with community, like, because we talked about the difference between friendship and community, is it can't be overstated that when you are in a church community, you are actually, I think that we can go back into our younger years and be like, oh, you like Care Bears, I like Care Bears too. Like we find this common interest, and that's what makes us friends. And I think that we are in general looking for that in adult, looking for, I mean, I connect with moms that have kids my age, or I connect with a mom who has only boys, or I connect with a person who, loves interior design. Like you look for these things to connect with people. But I think it's so important to realize that when you step into a church of a community of believers, and you are a believer yourself, you instantly, it doesn't even have to be in a church community. You instantly have a bond of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And your brothers and sisters in Christ. And for a season of my life, I had to realize that was like, because I was looking for someone that had the same interest in me, and someone reminded me, what about your bond in the Holy Spirit? What? Well, like, you're a sister in Christ. Like, that should be enough.
Right.
You share the burden of the kingdom together. You share, hospitality into the world together. You share kindness. You share the fruits of the Spirit, and you're in it together. So why is that not enough to start a friendship?
That's a good place to start.
It's a great place.
It's probably the best place to start when you think about it, because I think then your expectations maybe will be start out in a healthier place. Knowing that that's your commonality, but also knowing that, because grace has been extended to me, that I need to extend grace to this other person now that I'm sitting, like the horizontal thing, across the table from me, and not have unrealistic expectations of them, because really Jesus is the only one who can meet those expectations rather than what I think that person should be. I was thinking back during my, the lonely time after my divorce, and I started going to another church, and met some women that, we had some things in common. And I remember one Saturday morning just saying, hey, I'm going to be home all morning if you want to come over, we'll have some coffee. And I think I had donuts or something, or whatever. And thinking, I wonder if anybody's going to show up, and some of them did and some of them didn't. And, and it just turned into something that we just kind of just started doing. And now some of those women that did that were ones that I'm they're the women I've known since the early 90s. But it was not my natural bent at that point.
That's good to point out.
To invite people into my home.
Right.
Because,
you were going through something.
Yeah,
so.
I was going through something. My kids were kind of all over the place at that time because of that divorce. There was, I was renting a house, and it had some issues, so I'm thinking they're going to come in and they're going to judge me,
right.
And all this sort of thing. And, all those things that go through our heads as a woman.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing worse. Where you have invited people in, and then someone starts sharing about how they believe that there should be nothing on your kitchen counters at all.
What?
And then if you're like me, I have all kinds of things on my kitchen counters, and you're sitting. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting there going, I want to run out in the kitchen right now and throw everything in my oven.
Yes.
But it's. I think it was really, really hard for me to do it, because, again, that kind of hospitality to take the initiative and say, why don't you come over, was really, it made me feel really vulnerable, I think, more than anything. And nobody really likes that feeling.
No.
And I'm glad that I did it.
I was going to say it was hard, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it was. It was worth it. I think sometimes, too, you can start out just talking to someone, and then, and sharing certain aspects of your life, and find out that maybe they're more like what you were looking for, even though they didn't seem so right at the beginning. I mean, I have some friends that I've had in the past where it's like, I never would have thought I would be a friend with this person.
Mm-hmm.
But as we got to know each other a little bit, it's like, oh, yeah.
Unlikely places.
Yeah, unlikely places. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I think a few episodes back, I guess it was on the singleness episode, we were talking about how unintentionally we probably make marriage a goal in life. Like
Yeah.
once you find that right person and you know, your soulmates and you're connected forever, you've arrived.
Yep.
I think that unintentionally that happens about friendship as well. And so, you know, we talked along the lines of loneliness. So my question is, just to think about is, for me and in my life, do I make friendship the goal? And if I do, is that the goal? Is that an okay goal?
Is that healthy?
Is it healthy? But I will say that just to encourage those who are in lonely spaces, I learned so much in those spaces. And I think that happens all the time is like, we learn the most in the valleys.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't learn we learn some on the mountaintops, but on the mountaintops, everything is fine and like everything's rolling and we don't have anything to kind of push us or squeeze us or, you know, I don't know, test us.
Yeah.
And I think that in friendship, it's the loneliness and the waiting and in those times where we do learn a whole lot about ourselves and a whole lot about the creator who created friendships. So,
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like we've alluded to this, that friendship is a gift.
Yeah.
yes. And it probably is more rare than common.
I think so. I really do. I think we have to look at it that it's a gift, not a goal.
Right.
That's good.
It's
You know,
not a
it is a gift, and it's not, and it's something that obviously, you know, we have a desire for, some people more than others.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But to know that when you have a good friend, that is truly a treasure and it's a gift, but it cannot be the goal, because
Right.
if you make it the goal, then you're going to be disappointed.
Yes.
Well, because I feel like most friendships go through seasons.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I've had friends through seasons of my life and they were great. And I was so grateful for that friendship during that season, but they're not constant, you know, because I move here, she moved there, you know, life events happen. But there's one constant, you know, friendship that we always have. And I feel like when we seek him first, everything else is going to align for us.
Yeah.
Because he's going to grow us, he's going to stretch us. And we're going to appreciate those friendships and those seasons
Yeah.
so much more than if we hadn't gone through a
Yeah.
lonely season.
I think that's good to mention too, is holding your friendships open-handed.
Yes.
Because I think as humans, we're possessive and, you know, almost to the point where we're like, well, they can't be your friend because they're my friend. And that's a dangerous place to be, because you're saying like, I'm not going to share.
Right.
I'm not going to share what I have because I want it for myself. And I think that probably one of the healthiest levels of friendship is saying like, there was a season of a closeness between us, a richness to where we learn things or like God may provide a friend for you in a season that's hard. And like, I can look back on times in my life and I'm so thankful that I had someone to do life with in that season, but also being open-handed to know when that season comes to an end, that person can go and be friends with another person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also too, people change,
Yep.
you know.
There's the only constant in life is change.
Thank
There
you,
you go.
Morgan.
You're welcome. I don't like that, but
But it's true. I mean, people
Yeah.
change. You know, I change.
Yeah.
My friends change. And because of that, that friendship may evolve into something else. And, you know, obviously a lot of times we can say, well, I was close to this person, they moved, you know, or whatever. And so there's a physical distance between us, but sometimes there's just a distance grows because they've moved on to something in their life differently, or you have, or there's some kind of other thing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something wrong or they've done something wrong. Those things do happen. But it's, again, that whole concept of the open hand. Because the more that you grab onto somebody, it's like you're just going to strangle it. And that's not good. Nobody likes that. I mean, many people have had that experience where you had the possessive friend.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and they
want all your time,
right,
and all your thoughts and all your energy, and you're drained.
Right. And then they get upset because you spent time with somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, if that's you, then I'm just going to refer you to the toxic relationship episode. You should.
That's right.
Because we all have a certain level of toxicity, I think, because we want to do things selfishly. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts from you, Morgan?
I feel like I just had one. Where did it go? Talking about like single friendships kind of reminded me of my daughter. She's 8 now, but this is when she was 7, and just how I think it's important. This is my thought. Okay. It came back to me. We generally will be pulled into like a friendship, and like you have your person, you know, the other half of your friendship necklace. And I feel like it's important to, one, teach our kids and to be in a healthy friendship where you invite others into that friendship.
Yes.
You break that heart into 3 pieces, 4 pieces, 5 pieces. Like if you...
Or you just throw out the necklace altogether.
Or you throw out the necklace altogether
Right.
and you're like, hey, kumbaya, let's all be friends.
Yeah.
Because I think seeing someone lonely, like also, you know, asking God, make me aware of someone who needs a friend.
that's
Let
a
me
great
be
prayer.
that friend.
Right.
I want to see, I mean, this is
The
often a prayer.
marginalized, the oppressed,
Yes.
the distant, the lonely.
Yep. I often pray this before church on a Sunday. Like, God, bring someone in my path today that needs a friend, that needs a hug, that just needs a smile. Like, let me be that person. Let me be an extension of you and your love in this person's life. And I feel like if you approach friendships like that, like I love the community at our church and our circles. Like the goal of circles is, you know, we grow these circles. We invite people in and we grow these friendships. And then sometimes these circles break and one goes this way and one goes that way. But like, there's still love there. Like, it's not like, you know, you've broken up this relationship and they went there and we went here. Like, no, like we're growing, like we're bringing people into our friendship circles and it's meant to be a beautiful thing and an extension of the kingdom. It's like what we're trying to do, build this kingdom and bring people in. So I think just being aware, like when you do find that one person, to also invite others into that friendship.
Yeah, I think because we can get so stuck in our ways, like what you're talking about with like circles. I've been a part of a circle before where it's like, all right, this is so good. And all of us connect and we're learning about Jesus and everything. Right. And then you're like, nobody else can come in.
Right.
Because you're happy with where you are. I'm sure you can speak into this, you know, doing circles and everything, Janice. But, you know, we get happy and we get comfortable in our own little circles and pods or whatever. And I really don't think that that's the heart of Jesus. I think like to keep your eyes out for the people that need a friend.
Yeah. I think, you know, oftentimes when I'll have a discussion with a circle, which what we call small groups here, leader, and it's like talking about inviting people in, they'll say, well, it's going to change. It's going to change the atmosphere
well, there we
of the
go,
group.
That change
and
again.
I'm like, yeah, that's right. It will.
Point.
It's going to change the dynamics. Absolutely. I've done it multiple times in the groups I lead. And sometimes, you know, you have to just say, again, with an open hand, say, yeah, what we have is really good, and it's not for us only
to hold on
to. We're going to invite people in. Yes, the dynamics are going to change because we have different personalities and different people, but every time that we've done that, it's gotten better and richer, and it's just, I mean, it's beyond anything that you think it could be, and also too, just to accept that. That's okay. That's what this is supposed to be this season. Yeah. And this, you know, the way this time for this time period that we're all together, that's what it's going to be. And just knowing that really and trusting that Jesus really knows what needs to be done.
And he knows what he's doing.
Right. And knows what he's doing and just trusting him that he's the one that brings it all together.
Yes.
And I think that applies to all of our friendships, you know, where, like you said, I've got this really great friend. Well, let's include somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's different when you have 3 people, 4 people, 5 people or whatever. Right. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's good too.
Right.
Yeah.
think a lot of people maybe grow up without they don't know what a healthy friendship looks like.
Yeah.
And I feel like
say,
if you have a healthy friendship, inviting others in can show them what a healthy friendship looks like too.
Yeah.
Like going back to your toxicity or toxic relationships,
Yeah.
a lot of people, they're stuck in that, and they need to you need to invite them in so they can see what a healthy relationship looks like, whether if it's between you and your spouse. Like we are in a circle with other couples, other married couples, and I'm not saying that we're like the perfect example of a couple, because we're not, but seeing the other couples and just like, bouncing things off of them. We reached out to one of our couple friends like about budgeting last night, and he went to town on this budget for us.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yes, you do. And actually you guys were brought up in the conversation because we downloaded the same app that you use.
Oh, it's a good app.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. But anyway, like, you just reminds me of the verse in Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron. So when you are you make each other better.
Yeah.
And you want to bring others into that. You
Yeah.
don't want to just, stick with your few.
Yeah.
You want to turn your few into many, and you
Yeah.
want to help each other grow. You want to sharpen each other's iron, so
Yeah.
we're all
Absolutely.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What a good conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like wherever you are along the spectrum of friendships, I think what really stuck out to me today was that, there is loneliness along the journey of friendship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable. If you haven't reached it yet, get ready, because
Or if you already have, get ready because it's coming again.
Yeah. I think, we talked about seasons and seasons of really great friendship, seasons of loneliness. And then how can you switch your mindset in the loneliness? How can you switch your mindset?
Yeah.
And I think what we really drilled down on was, what kind of came out was be the friend.
Yeah.
Don't wait for friends to come to you, be the friend. And so put yourself out there, even though it's vulnerable and a little scary and a little risky. Put yourself out there because, like you said earlier, God will honor that. And you never know, the most unlikely friendship can form with the most unlikely person.
Yeah.
That's right.
And God can use that to bless you and that other person. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for
Thanks for having
filling
me.
in and being on our podcast.
Yeah,
It
thanks
was
for
good having
me.
you, Morgan.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right.
We miss you, Megan.
Yep.
Yes, we do miss Megan too.
Yeah. And on that note, Megan will be back next week for our last podcast of the season. We've gone through 12 exciting podcasts.
It's going to be number 12.
Yeah.
For the
And
season.
yeah. And so we're going to be finishing up next week. So you're going to want to make sure to download that last one, all the ones before. You can always get them on any platform, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the places. So if you have any questions or concerns or ideas, go ahead and email inspired@thex.church and we'll get back to you.
That's right.
Until next week, we'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. Our hope is that everyone who hears these episodes, near or far, would know that the invitation at our table is always open. You might not be sitting at this table, but our desire is that you would join in on these conversations. So if you were inspired by today's talks, send us an email at inspired@thex.church. We'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, and questions. And as always, don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts.